want to provide for you an update on air conditioning. You have a packet with you, and I want to go through some of those details. Start really just with what our situation has been. I want to start from the beginning of this school year, but I also want to paint the broader picture, full transparency where we stand right now at the high school with air conditioning. So start with what is it we're trying to achieve with air conditioning, heating, or cooling. So people have different preferences. What we focus on is the OSHA standards, which recommend between 68 and 76 degrees. So we aim for the midpoint of that, which is 73. Most of our set points in all schools are set to that level. And so that's what the units are designed to run off of. Where we were at the end of the first week of school, so we pulled the data on August 1st. We have a regular process where we work with Siemens, which is our contractor that supports the school radio portion of it. We do some of the initial just kind of troubleshooting pieces. At that point, we had several places where the air conditioning was out and we had parts on order. So those were a lobby area for the gym, kitchen, not the cafeteria, but the back kitchen, classroom 139, and office 172, and we're waiting on those parts. And we're at the mercy of the parts coming in, and Siemens is working with us on that. We also were troubleshooting some issues in some other areas with Siemens where we weren't totally sure the issue. Some of them have been ongoing, some of them are new. Carpentry room, the hallway of the second floor, guidance office. And then we also have areas that we've monitored and worked on that have what we call intermittent issues, or issues where they might have multiple units serving them and one is out, but the other ones are working. So auditorium had one that was on and off, the gym has one that had been on and off, cafeteria had one on and off. Those all, for the most part, were able to supply the air they needed, but they were strained because they didn't have all the units working with them. We also had areas of the weight room, locker room, and an office off the library. So that's where we were August 1st, and I named that just because there's questions like where did we get to when we were last Monday. That's where we were before that Monday. What happened on Monday is something very different than typically when we have an issue with air conditioning. This wasn't actually an issue with the air conditioning that started it. It was that we had a leak develop. So there was a water leak in a pipe that feeds from the geothermal units. Before we did anything, when the leak was happening, air conditioning was still running as it would have on the week before, and we pulled temperatures from across school. So we can go in and have basically a system that can pull all the temperatures classroom by classroom, in addition to us visually or physically inspecting them. So we went back and looked, what were those right before that happened? It was 72.5 degrees was the average across those rooms we pulled. But with the geothermal pipes, that needs to feed water that supports all those units. There was a leak, and it was also a leak that was fairly large, and we need to stop the water. So this has happened at Hopewell High School before. It's happened a few times in the last few years. More often than not, it's happened after hours. I've been there one of the times when that has happened, but basically what we have to do is shut off the water. We bring in a contracted welder who basically welds the pipe back, and then we turn the water back on. That typically takes 30 to 45 minutes in the times that it's happened before. So at approximately 10:15, the welder had arrived, the air conditioning system was shut off for what we thought was a 30 to 45 minute time, which wouldn't have a big impact if that's the case. And so then the welder completed the repair, went to repressurize the system, and another leak developed near the first one. So quickly went back to shut it back off and do that, and it happened yet again. That's unheard of for our experience that we have that kind of situation. And by the time that we got to this point, it was approximately 1:30. You see in one of your charts, we charted the temperature of where it went from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. and the average went from 72 to 77.5. But at that point, we were an hour and a half from dismissal. It takes a while to basically to mobilize transportation and all the other things to be able to do dismissal, especially since the drivers wouldn't have been working yet at that time. And it would have taken about the time to get to regular dismissal. So with temperatures at that point, roughly in the mid-70s, we made the decision to continue forward for the last 90 minutes of the day. The repair was completed at about 3:30 p.m. The units were restarted. What happens sometimes when you go through a restart, and especially because it had been longer than just a shorter time, is some of them trip out. You go to restart them, some start back, some trip, you have to go reset them. That was the issue that we had going on Monday evening, and monitoring it overnight. There was still not a sufficient enough areas of the building that were cooling that we thought we could open school on Tuesday from an air conditioning perspective. And so, so we worked on that through the morning Tuesday. By 10:30, 11 o'clock on Tuesday morning, air had returned to normal levels in the majority of the school. Some of those resets caused issues in some rooms. The high school is unusual with its air conditioning system because there are a lot of units that are to an individual room, whereas most of our schools, it's a rooftop unit that covers several pods of an elementary school, for example. So it means a lot of individual units to try to fix. So, but they were small in number. We were able to get through that so that by the beginning of Wednesday's school had returned. I share with you in the chart there too, basically on where we've gotten to. We fixed the units that had popped up on those couple of days. We monitored those. The warmest, there were 3 rooms. We both monitored them from the web-based software, and I physically inspected them 3 times that day, and the warmest I got to was 76. We did have some calls or some complaints about some rooms, and some of those rooms that we went into were 73. And that is not something we would consider to be warm. Some of them were a little more humid than normal, but it's not something that, that is pretty close to what we target in the OSHA standards. The other piece, could we make the rooms cooler? We could make the rooms cooler. It comes at a risk, and I'm going to share a little bit more about that in a minute.